There's a misconception that stops a lot of people before they even get started. This idea that motivation is the fuel we need to do the work, that we have to wait until we're inspired, until we're in the mood, until the stars align. But here's the truth: if you're waiting on motivation, you're already behind. Motivation is unreliable. It's fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather. You might wake up fired up one day, ready to conquer the world, and the next day, you feel like crawling under covers and disappearing. If you only act when you feel like it, you'll never get where you're trying to go. That's why discipline is everything. Discipline is doing what you said you were going to do long after the mood you said it has passed. It's not glamorous. It's not loud. It doesn't make for a great Instagram post. But discipline is the quiet force that builds success brick by brick, day after day, even when nobody's watching. It's the choice to show up when it's raining, when you're tired, when you're not feeling it. It's the decision to honor your commitments to yourself, because if you can't keep promises to yourself, how can you expect to keep them for anyone else? And listen, this doesn't mean discipline is easy. In fact, it's supposed to be hard. That resistance you feel, that's the test. That's the space where growth happens. That's the moment where you decide if you're serious or just interested. People often say things like, "Fit, I want to write a book," or "I want to build a business," but they only act when conditions are perfect. They wait until they're excited. But discipline doesn't care if the sun is shining or if your back hurts or if the couch is calling your name. Discipline gets up and does the reps. It's funny, we all admire consistency in others. We watch the athlete train in the off season, the artist painting late into the night, the entrepreneur grinding when nobody's clapping. We call it dedication, hustle, even genius. But underneath it all, it's just discipline. The same decision made again: I will not quit. I will not break. I will show up tomorrow, every damn day. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think discipline is about punishment, about being hard on yourself, suffering, grinding your way through misery. That's not it. True discipline is about love. It's about loving yourself and to demand more, to say, I deserve better than what comfort is giving me. I deserve the strength that comes from struggle. I deserve the pride that comes from follow through. That's powerful. That's how you shift your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and fails and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through no matter what. You think I always feel like doing what I need to do. No way. There are days I want to skip. Days when the excuses sound good. Days I want to slack off. But I don't give those feelings the power to decide. Feelings change, but my standards don't. And I'm not negotiating with myself every morning. I already made the decision. I made the commitment. All I have to do now is honor it. Some of you are waiting for a lightning bolt, for that magic wave of inspiration to get moving. Stop waiting. The action is the spark. You don't feel like running, put your shoes on. You don't feel like writing, open the doc. You don't feel like showing up, walk into the room anyway. Action first. The feeling follows. That's how discipline wins. And here's the truth: the more you practice discipline, the stronger it gets, just like a muscle. At first, it's heavy. At first, it hurts. But over time, you build resilience, you build stamina, you build a version of yourself that doesn't flinch when it gets hard. That's the version of you that can't be stopped. Because consistency, the kind of consistency that transforms lives, doesn't start with motivation. It starts with a decision, a choice to commit, a promise to yourself that you will keep showing up, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard, especially when it's boring, especially when nobody's cheering. So if you want to force yourself to be consistent, don't wait for motivation to find you. Create structure. Embrace discomfort. Hold the line when your mind tries to wander. And remember this, sucks. The difference between the person you are and the person you want to be is found in the discipline you're willing to build. And that starts now. You know what people chase a lot these days? Hype. That initial, that initial surge of energy when they decide they're going to change their lives, they start bold. New goals, new vision boards, big declarations like, this is my year. And for a while, it feels good. It feels powerful. But here's the problem. Hype fades. It always does. That fire you felt at the beginning doesn't last if it's built on emotion alone. That's why the gym's packed in January and half empty by March. That's why projects get abandoned halfway through, because the hype isn't enough. What you need is something deeper. You need habits. Habits are the real engine of consistency. They're what you fall back on when you're tired, when you're stressed, when life gets chaotic. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And habits are your systems, the small, seemingly insignificant actions you repeat every single day until they shape who you are. Let me tell you something from experiencing. Success doesn't come from the occasional burst of greatness. It comes from the boring daily repetition of doing the work. It comes from brushing your teeth, so to speak, even when no one's watching. No applause, no spotlight, just you and the task in front of you. And when you do it often enough, it stops being a decision. It becomes your default. That's the magic of habits. They remove the need for constant willpower because willpower runs out. It gets tired. But habits, they stick. They're rooted. They carry you when motivation is gone. You want to write a book. Don't wait for inspiration to hit. Set a time every day. Sit down. Write, even if it's garbage, even if it's 5 sentences. Because it's not about brilliance in the moment. It's about consistency over time. You want to get in shape. Stop chasing the perfect workout. Start showing up. Get your body moving every day, even if it's just a walk or a few push-ups in your living room. Build the habit, the routine, the identity. That's where most people mess up. They focus on outcomes, not inputs. They want the six-pack, the $1 million business, the perfect relationship, but they don't commit to the process. They went in without showing up to practice. But here's the truth in habits of the practice. And if you don't love the practice, you'll never survive the path. You've got to make it automatic. Structure your day so you don't have to think. You shouldn't be deciding every morning whether to work out, whether to read, whether to focus. That decision should already be made. Build into your schedule like brushing your teeth. Non-negotiable. You don't need a massive overhaul. You need tiny, repeated steps, small wins. Stack them. You floss one tooth. Great. Do it again tomorrow. You read one page. That's a page more than yesterday. The size of the habit doesn't matter. The consistency does. Because over time, those small wins compound. That's the compound interest of self-respect. That's how you change your life. And yeah, sometimes it feels boring. Sometimes it feels slow. But that's the point. You're building a foundation. You're rewiring your brain. You're teaching yourself that this is what you do now. You don't get dramatic about it. You don't wait until it feels right. You just do the thing. You just do you want to know the secret weapon. Remove choice. Eliminate friction. If the gym is across town, move your body at home. If your phone distracts you, leave it in another room. Don't rely on strength. Design your environment so you can win even when you're weak. That's not cheating. That's being smart. And reward yourself, not with junk or a break from the habit, but with recognition. Celebrate that streak. Check the box. Feel the pride of showing up even on your worst day. Especially on your worst day, that's when it counts. Look, hype might get you started, but habits are what carry you through. Habits are what separate the people who wish from the people who achieve. So stop chasing that rush. Stop waiting for the right moment. Build the systems. Build the structure. Make it boring, make it automatic, and you'll make it last. That's how consistency becomes who you are. You ever notice how we tend to overcomplicate things? We want to be consistent. We want to make progress, but we make it so hard to even get started. We stack up expectations, perfectionism, fear of failing. And you know why? Because the task looks too big. The mountain looks too high. And when it feels overwhelming, you convince yourself that waiting until you're more ready is the smarter move. But let me tell you, it's not about being ready. It's about lowering the barrier to action. You've got to make it so easy to start that your brain has no excuse. You want to work out. Don't plan a 90-minute gym session with complicated equipment and perfect timing. Start with 5 minutes of movement, push-ups on your floor. Walk around your block. Just move. You want to read more? Don't try to finish a book a week right away. Read one page. Just one. You want to start a business? Don't map out the 5-year plan before you even made one sale. Start with one conversation, one post, one product idea. See, the hardest part is starting, and once you get moving, even just a little, momentum kicks in. That first push is where the resistance lies. That's where doubt screams the loudest. But if you can shrink the size of that first step, you silence the noise. You turn this massive goal into a tiny task. And the beautiful thing, tiny tasks done consistently lead to massive transformation. People ask me all the time, how do you stay consistent when you don't feel like it? And my answer is simply, I stop thinking and I start moving. I don't give myself time to negotiate, because the longer you think about something, the more reasons you'll find not to do it. The mind loves comfort. It's going to tell you, you're too tired. It's too late. You'll do it tomorrow. But if you've already built the habit of starting small, those excuses lose their power. It's not about crushing every single time. It's about showing up, even with a weak version of yourself, and doing what you can. Some days you're going to feel strong. You'll have energy, clarity, drive. Other days, it'll feel like you're dragging your body across the finish line, but it's not about intensity. It's about identity. And when your identity is tied to being someone who shows up no matter what, then consistency becomes automatic. You ever walk past a sink full of dishes and think, I'll do it later. And then days go by and suddenly it feels like a mountain out of a mess. That's what happens when you don't take small actions early. Procrastination is a liar. Promises comfort, but delivers chaos. But if you rinse that plate right after you eat, it's nothing. It takes seconds. That's the mindset you need for everything. Keep the bar low enough that there's no room for negotiation, no for perfection, for progress. And here's the secret: once you start, you often do more than you thought you would. You plan for 5 minutes, and you end up doing 15. You sit down to write one paragraph, and the words keep flowing. But even if they don't, even if it's just the bare minimum, you still win, because you're building trust with yourself. You're proving that you follow through, and that's worth more than a perfect performance. The key is to remove friction. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Set up your workspace before you go to bed. Have your water bottle filled, your shoes by the door, your tools ready. Make starting so easy it's ridiculous not to. Your future self should thank you every morning for how well you prepared the night before. That's how they don't rely on motivation. They build systems that make success automatic. The mind loves a clean break. It loves to say, you missed a day. You're off track. You might as well give up. But when you keep the steps small, it's easier to get back on. You don't need to make up for missed time. You just need to show up again. One brick at a time. And when you look back after weeks or months of doing the little things, you'll realize you've built something unshakable. Consistency isn't about heroic effort. It's not about going all in every day. It's about lowering the barrier to action, starting small, and refusing to stop. You don't have to crush it. You just have to begin. One of the most powerful ways to stay consistent, and I mean truly consistent, is to track your progress, not at a here, not just with vague ideas of, I think I did okay this week. No, I'm talking about real, visible, undeniable proof that you're showing up and doing the work. Because what gets tracked gets repeated. When you start keeping score, you start playing the game differently. See, when you're trying to build something, a better body, a better mindset, a better life, the days blur together. One decision doesn't seem like it matters. One skipped workout, one missed journal entry, one day of slacking off. It's easy to say, it's just one time. But one time turns into two. Two turns into a habit. And before you know it, you're off track and wondering how you got there. That's why tracking matters. It keeps you honest. It shows you the truth, not the story you tell yourself. You can't hide from a calendar with empty boxes. You can't argue with a habit tracker that shows you missed 5 days. That kind of awareness is uncomfortable, but it's necessary because it keeps your focus locked on the only thing that matters showing up. And let me tell you, when you start seeing the streak, when you look at your wall or your notebook or your app and realize, I've done this thing for 10 straight days, that creates momentum. You feel invested, you don't want to break the chain. You start to take pride in the pattern. It becomes part of your identity. Not just something you do, but something you are. And you don't need some fancy system. You don't need apps and spreadsheets unless you like those things. A whiteboard. A paper calendar with a red marker. Each day you show up, you make a mark. That mark becomes a symbol of progress. It becomes proof that you kept your promise. And the more marks you make, the harder it becomes to stop. Because no one wants to lose a streak they worked hard to build. But don't stop at tracking. Celebrate. Celebrate the small wins. Not with a party or a break or something that throws you off. I'm talking about internal recognition. Let yourself feel good when you show up. When you do the thing you say you do, acknowledge it. Smile. Say it out loud. Write it down. I did it today. Even when it was hard, that moment of pride becomes fuel for tomorrow. A lot of people wait to celebrate until the big goal is hit. The problem is big goals take time, and if you only feel successful at the end, you'll burn out before you get there. But if you feel successful every day you show up, then the process itself becomes rewarding. And when the process feels good, you'll keep coming back to it. That's the secret to long-term consistency. Make it feel good to keep going. Make it feel painful to quit. And the way to do that is to build visible progress and attach real pride to your actions, even the small ones. I'll be real with you. There are days when I don't feel like it. There are days when everything in me says, skip it. Nobody will know. But I'll know. And when I look at that chart or that journal and I see the blank space where today's mark should be, that stings. Not because I'm trying to be perfect, but because I've built a rhythm that I don't want to lose. That rhythm means something. It tells me I'm moving. I'm getting better. So many people fall off not because they aren't capable, but because they lose sight of their progress. They don't see how far they've come. They forget the work they've already done. And when you forget your progress, it's easy to feel like starting over is your only option. But if you've been tracking, you don't need to guess. You've got the receipts. You've got the streak. You've got the proof. Look, consistency isn't just about doing the work. It's about staying connected to the work. And tracking is how you stay connected. It reminds you that every small step matters, that you're not just going through the motions, you're stacking wins day after day, week after week. And every time you show up, you build a little more belief in yourself. So if you want to stay consistent, don't leave it to chance. Don't just hope you're making progress. Measure it. See it. Celebrate it. Because the more you can see the path you're on, the more motivated you'll be to keep walking it. Keep the streak alive. Let's talk about something that people don't like admitting. You're not always going to feel motivated. In fact, most days you probably won't. And that's okay. It's normal. You're not broken. You're just human. But here's the catch. If you only do what needs to be done when you feel like it, you'll never build anything lasting. That's why if you want to be consistent, you have to learn to push through resistance, not wait for motivation. Resistance is that voice in your head that says, sleep in, Skip it. You can do it later. It's the pull toward comfort, the urge to delay. It shows up when the alarm goes off early. It shows up when your legs are sore, your inbox is full, your confidence is low. It never leaves. It just changes shape. And if you listen to it even once, you teach it that it's in control. But if you ignore it, if you act anyway, you take back your power. Now, I don't care who you are or what your goals are. There were times when resistance hits harder than usual, when you're tired, when no one's cheering you on, when progress feels slow. That's the moment that defines who you are, not the days when everything's going well. Anybody can show up when they feel good. I'm talking about the days when everything inside you says no and you show up anyway. That's what makes you dangerous. That's the kind of grit that separates dabblers from finishers. You think elite performers feel amazing every day. You think champions only work when they're inspired. No, they show up regardless, and they don't rely on feelings. They rely on commitment, because feelings come and go, but commitment, that's steady, that's real. And when you act in spite of your feelings, when you prove to yourself that you can do hard things, you start to build a new kind of confidence, not the kind that's loud and flashy, the kind that's quiet, unshakable, built from action. Let me be real with you. Your mind will try to protect you. It will say, just today, take it easy. It will say, you've earned a break. But you've got to learn the difference between rest and resistance. Rest is earned. Resistance is an excuse. Rest fuels you. Resistance traps you. And the better you get at spotting the difference, the faster you'll grow. So when resistance shows up, and it will, you need to respond with action. Not overthinking, not debate. You tell yourself, I'll just do 5 minutes. You put on the shoes, you open the laptop, you move your body. And here's what usually happens. Once you start, you realize it wasn't as hard as your mind made it out to be. That's the trick. Resistance is loudest before you begin. But the moment you act, it quiets down. The momentum takes over. That's why discipline matters more than motivation. Discipline is the muscle you train when you do the work, even when it sucks, even when it's boring, even when it's uncomfortable, especially then. Because every time you push through, you cast a vote for the person you're becoming. And over time, those votes add up. They shape your identity. They form the foundation of your self-belief. You've got to stop negotiating with yourself. The more room you leave for negotiation, the more space resistance has to grow. Build routines, build systems. Make the plan the boss, not your move. You wake up and you follow through, not because it's fun, because you said you would. That's how consistency becomes real. That's how success becomes sustainable. And look, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's necessary. I'm saying you'll feel like quitting. You'll feel like skipping. You'll have days when everything is stacked against you. But those days are your proving ground. That's when you train your will. That's when you earn the right to keep going. When you learn to work through resistance, you become unshakable. You stop being a slave to your emotions. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You become the kind of person things done. Not because it's convenient, but because it's who you are. And once you cross that line, once you realize that you don't need to feel like it to follow through, you become unstoppable. Because now, consistency isn't just something you do. It's something you are. Show up, especially when you don't want to. Let me tell you something a lot of people don't want to hear. Setbacks are not optional. They're not a possibility. Guaranteed, you will fall off track. You will mess up. Life will punch you in the face when you least expect it. And when it does, it won't ask if you're ready. It won't care how motivated you are or how perfect your routine's been. That's why if you're serious about being consistent, you've got to build the muscle of bouncing back. You've got to get really good at starting again and again. Too many people get crushed by failure. They hit a bump and they take it personally. They miss a few days and start telling themselves a story. I guess I'm not cut out for this. I knew I'd screw this up. This always happens to me. That story is the real danger, not the failure itself. The story you attach to is what keeps you stuck. But if you can change that story, if you can see failure as feedback, not as your identity, everything shifts. Missing a day, skipping a session, falling short, that doesn't make you weak. That makes you human. But staying down, that's a choice. The people who stay consistent over the long haul aren't the ones who never mess up. They're the ones who mess up and get back on track without losing momentum. They don't let one bad day turn into a bad week. They don't let guilt stop them from restarting. They move forward fast. You've got to treat your setbacks like speed bumps, not stop signs. Sure, they slow you down. Sure, they shake you up, but they don't mean it's over. What matters is how fast you get back into motion. The longer you wait to restart, the harder it becomes. The voice of resistance gets louder. The doubt creeps in, but you can shorten the gap between falling and getting back up. You'll stay in the game long enough to win. Let me give it to you straight. You're going to fail sometimes. You're going to have days where you break your streak. You're going to miss the workout, skip the journal, blow the diet, procrastinate on the work. It's coming. And when it does, you need to have a plan, not a perfect plan, a recovery plan. Something simple, something that reminds you who you are, something that gets you back into motion. Today, not tomorrow. Because let's be real, one bad day won't ruin your progress. But the story you tell yourself about day can, the story that says, you failed, so why even try? The story that says, you'll never be consistent. That story is a lie. The truth is, progress is messy. It's nonlinear. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be relentless. You ever see somebody stumble and instead of trying to stand up right away, they just sit there and look around like they're embarrassed. That's what most people do with failure. They stop, they overthink. They let pride and shame get in the way of action. But the strong ones, the consistent ones, they stumble and stand up in the same motion. They don't care how they look. They care about getting back to work. And listen, if you're in a season right now where you've lost momentum, where you feel off track, where you've let things slide, I want you to know it's not too late. It's never too late. You don't need to wait for a Monday. You don't need to wait and you feel better or the circumstances are perfect. You just need to recommit right now, no shame, no guilt, just a decision. This is what separates the amateur from the professional. The pro doesn't expect perfection. The pro expects adversity. They prepare for it. They know the fall is part of the climb, but they have a commitment that's bigger than any single moment. They've decided that no matter how many times they fall, they'll rise over and over again. The truth is, consistency isn't about never falling. It's about never staying down. You're going to get knocked off balance. You're going to have emotional days, chaotic days, lazy days. But what defines you is what you do next. Know what you did wrong. So what you choose to do now. If you lost your rhythm, if you've broken the streak, if you're beating yourself over slipping, stop. Breathe. Get back up. Reset your focus. Reignite your fire. Remind yourself that this is the process. This is the path. This is where the real growth happens. The ones who succeed, they're not the ones who never fall. They're the ones who rise faster than they fall. Every single time